finance, this will be taught. This is not a thought. So today I have decided to take a topic on personal finance. So let us start with the importance of learning about money. Why we should learn about money and why money is so important for us. In our day-to-day life, we have been taught and we are growing up with the advice that money is everything and money is the most important thing in our life. That is actually the surrounding and the environment around us. But at the same time, when it comes to some spirituality and uh, some other advices, some tips from our parents, we have been thought that money is not the solution to all the problems and life is not all about earning money and life is all about peace and moksha and getting some peace of mind and all these things. But still, money is most important and very important part in our life. So why we need to learn about money? So first thing is that money is most important. Why this money is most important? Because to live a decent life, to live a comfortable life, we need to have some money. Then if we have some long-term goals, we must have some savings to meet our long-term goals. And now what will be those long-term goals? We'll come to all those points later on in the lecture. And the next thing is that we should learn about money so that we can spend responsibly. We have money, it does not mean that we should spend it as and when required and whatever we want and in an irresponsible way. So in order to behave responsibly, we also need to learn about money. And next thing is that we need to learn about money because of the financial literacy. As I told you in the beginning also only that uh, majority of the people in our country, even I'm not talking about that those illiterate people, even the literate people, they pay least attention to their financial part. They might be graduate, postgraduate or doctorate, but when it comes to money related matters, they pay least attention to, because and simply they will invest or they will act or behave only on the basis of advice received from some of their friends and relatives. And that's why this financial literacy is very important, and that's why we need to learn about money. And financial literacy will lead to ability to manage their finances, because once we are literate, once we are financially literate, then we have acquired the ability to manage our financial matters. Now, the first point is the value of money and why money is most important. Most of the time we have been asking this question, can money really buy happiness? पैसे से तुम बिस्तर खरीद सकते हो लेकिन नींद नहीं खरीद सकते. पैसे से तुम खाना खरीद सकते हो लेकिन भूख नहीं खरीद सकते. These are the some of the songs, some of the proverbs, some of the sayings we have been listening to in our society, and ultimately we came to the conclusion that money cannot buy happiness, or money is not the solution to all the problems. But the problem is poverty also cannot buy happiness. Money can't buy happiness, nor do poverty. So it's better to have some money and then try to solve our problems. And one thing, my dear friends, money cannot buy happiness, but lack of money, absence of money can definitely buy miseries for you. And money is definitely not the solution to all the problems in your life, but again, you should have enough money before thinking such nonsense things. So the bottom line is that people should have money, reasonable money, so that they can earn a decent livelihood, they can lead a decent life. Should we earn money by any means? Again, when I'm talking about that we should have money, then the next question is, should we earn money by any means? Definitely no. And there has to be a balance between ethics and money. We should earn money by all the ethical practices. Earning money, it does not mean that one should be unethical. Almost 70 years of our post-independence, we have been portrayed and it has been portrayed in most of our platforms, whether it is social media or cinema or television, or even in some of the dialogues happening in the society, that if a person is wealthy, if a person is rich, definitely that person must be a very unethical man. If you just go back to the movies, our old movies, Hindi movies, you are from Maharashtra, so you must be very familiar and fond with the Hindi movies, because that is Bollywood is nearer to you. In 1970s and 80s, the rich man must have been a smuggler. So our mind has been tuned in such a way that if a person is rich, definitely he must be an smuggler, or he must be practicing some bad practices, and because of that only he is having so much of the money. And the hero of the movie happens to be a very poor person. The hero of the movie, he happens to be very ethical man. He is very good. औरतों की इज्जत भी बचाता है, इज्जत भी करता है, गरीबों को सम्मान भी करता है, और बहुत गरीब होता है. So the life is not like the 70s or 80s movie, that if you are very ethical then you have to lead a very poor life, and if you are not ethical then only you can have such lavish and glamorous life. It's in between this. The point is that one can earn money and still remain ethical. Ethics have nothing to do with the wealthiness. An ethical person can also be a wealthy, and wealthy person can also practice ethics in his life or in her life. If we have to talk about ethics, what exactly we mean by ethics? So see, ethics is a moral code of moral standards of conduct, a code of moral standards. There are certain codes which are considered to be moral, and which are these are the benchmarks with respect to the morality for what is good and right, as opposed to what is bad or wrong. So in society there are certain moral code of conduct which are considered to be good, like obey the traffic rules. This is a good practice, and this is a moral code of conduct. And if you are obeying the traffic rules, it means you are ethical. And if you are not obeying the traffic rules, these are the moral code of conduct, means you are not it means you are unethical. So similarly, there are these ethics. So for business also, in life also, there are certain moral code of conduct, and those moral in business also, for earning money also, there are certain moral code of conduct, that you should not cheat, and you can earn money without cheating others, without going against the society, without involving in any activity which is detrimental and harmful to the life of general people in the society, or which is detrimental to the interest of the nation. So the point is, we should earn money. We should earn money by following some standards, some moral code of conduct, and by following those moral code of conduct also we can remain wealthy. It's not that if you are following those unethical practices, then only we can become very rich person in the life. And is it that people who earn more are always richer? The earning and the wealth, is there any correlation between these two? And is there any correlation between your ancestral property and your current state of being wealth? So we'll just see. So first thing is that the answer is straightforward, no, that those who earn more, they are not necessarily they will be richer. Why? We'll come to that later on. And then if the people, those who earn more, they are not definitely going to be a very rich person always in society, then what is essential to become rich? And there are 4 categories of people in the society we can found, like born in a rich family and lead a rich life. Though they are born in a rich family and throughout the life they remain rich. There are some people, those who born in rich family, but later on their life they become poor and they lead a very poor life. There are some people in society, those who born in poor family, but they become rich later on like Dhirubhai Ambani is one such example. And there are some person who are born in a poor family and they remain poor throughout their life. And the second category, born in a rich family, but later on their life they become relatively poor or they lead a poor life. Again, in Dhirubhai Ambani, like there are two brothers, Anil Ambani and Mukesh Ambani. These two brothers are the example. Both of them have uh, got the equal wealth in their ancestral property. But you can see the state of affairs of Mukesh Ambani and Anil Ambani. Anil Ambani have to mortgage his wife's jewelry for sustaining his livelihood. Whether on the other hand, Mukesh Ambani, he is also born in a rich family and he is just managing his wealth very nicely. Now, in all these four conditions, there are two conditions, that a person is born rich, and two conditions, a person dies rich. Now, if you just see the bottom line, whether why a person remains rich in his life or why a person who born in a poor family but later on become rich, one essential part in their life is that we'll call financial planning. Because those who have planned their finances well, they are able to manage their life relatively better than those who are not able to plan their finances. And when we talk about financial planning, one important thing about financial planning is that also is derived from financial planning is the financial discipline. I have seen over a period of time and in a short span of life that there are some people who are very much financially disciplined. They will always pay their dues in time. They are committed to their dues. They will never miss their dues, whether it is a credit card dues or dues from a grocery shop or a person from whom they have borrowed something. They will always meet the deadline and they will never become defaulted in their life. Means they have a financial discipline, and because of that this financial discipline comes because of their financial planning, because they know in advance what kind of dues are going to happen and they plan accordingly. So this financial planning is the undercurrent of all these four situations. Those who are able to plan their finances well, they lead a very purposeful life, very decent life, and those who fail to plan their finances, ultimately they lead a very miserable life. It is said that failing to plan is in fact planning to fail. So those who fail to plan means that they have planned for their failure, and this is true in case of finances also. There is a very popular saying in respect to describing all the four conditions written here in the slides, that कोई किस्ती में तकदीर लिए बैठा है, कोई होता है जो किस्ती को उलट देता है, कोई खुद खून से लिखता है अपनी तकदीर, कोई होता है जो बस खून उगल देता है. So these are the four situations which are described by this very popular saying. Now, when we have to talk about financial planning, then financial planning it is a mixture of two words, finance and planning. Okay. Now, when we have to talk about planning, what is planning? So, being a student of management, I think in the very first lesson of management you have been taught about the definition of plan, and the planning is all about deciding what, where, why, when, how, about what to do, why to do, where to do, when to do, how to do, what, anything. One is interesting part about the planning. The word planning is that planning can never be for the past. Planning is always futuristic. And the last function of management, that is controlling cannot be for future. Controlling is always for the past. So planning is always looking forward and controlling is looking back. So when it comes to planning, it is looking forward, And when it comes to financial planning, so deciding about your finances, what, why, where, how, when, and what to decide about finances. Planning what about finance, why, where, how, when, of all the things about the finances, and that will be the part of our financial planning. Okay. Now, why we need financial planning? It is, as I told you, that planning of finances is essential for everyone. And as I told you initially, that those who plan well, they restrain themselves from overspending because they know what kind of commitment they have to honor, what kind of dues are coming in the near future, and accordingly they plan their finances, they plan their spending, and that's why they restrain themselves from overspending. And planning is essential to achieve your financial goals. Now, what will be your financial goals? We'll come to that later on. Yeah, here in this slide only we have our financial goals. So what may be your financial goal? So you are now pursuing BBA. So what may be your immediate financial goal? Some of your goals might be in very short term, that right now you are in BBA first year or BBA second year. So maybe 2 years down the line, so 3 years down the line, you might have to take a decision whether you should continue your studies, you should go for the postgraduate studies. And if you think to pursue postgraduate studies, then you will require some money, because now getting a management degree, because you are pursuing BBA, so definitely your dream, you must be aspiring for MBA degree, and pursuing MBA is relatively very costly business than any other master degree program. Like suppose those who are thinking to do MA or MSc or MCom, those courses are relatively less costly than MBA or MTech or MPharma. So your immediate goal might be to pursue your master degree. Then your midterm goal, maybe, which will be after 3 years or maybe within 5 years, you must be thinking just to settle your business, so to establish your own business, to get married. So this may be your midterm goals. In the long run, you might be thinking to have your own business, your own brand. You must be thinking to buy a house. That may be your long-term goals. So you must have some goals in your life, and all those goals must have to be translated in terms of money. That if you want to pursue MBA, this much amount of money will be required. If you want to buy a house, this much amount of money will be required. So all these goals have some monetary value, and that becomes your financial goals. So your financial goal may be education, it may be marriage. After some time, maybe you are PG. So, or those who are relatively of a higher age, those who are married, for them their goal might be their children's marriage. So buying a house, buying a car, travel may be one of the financial goal, that you might be thinking to go to say a place like Switzerland. So for that also you need money. You might be thinking that after your master degree, you are planning to travel entire Europe. That must be your goal, and for that also you need sufficient amount of money. So these are your financial goal, and all these goals, these are your goals, and all these goals have some monetary value, because none of these goals will come free of cost. If you want to pursue your higher education, that will require some money. For marriage, normally some money is required. To construct a house, if you have not got a house from your parents, then you need to construct your own house or buy your own house. That also need some money. Buying a car, traveling, and other things. It may be like charity is also one of the financial goal. For example, like Bill Gates, he used to donate every year a huge amount of money, and that becomes one of his financial goal. Sudha Murthy, the chairperson of Infosys Foundation, her financial goal is that how much amount I am going to donate in this particular year. So that can be another kind of financial goal. So you should have your financial goal very clear and very well defined. Now the question is, most of the time the students ask, we are just students, we are kids, should we think about financial planning? So at the very beginning, while talking about the prelude of this session, I told you that since this is most important and this is very important for students to think about financial planning and to learn about financial planning, because you have more time in your hand. You have relatively more time. Everything is in this universe is relative. So you have relatively more time as compared to any other person in your surrounding, maybe like your father, mother, your teachers, so you have more time than compared to any other person. Okay, so immediate answer is planning at what age is that जभी जागिए तभी सवेरा. You should start as early as possible. Okay, the more early you will start, better it is, because of the fact that you will have more time. But it does not mean that if you have progressed sufficiently in your age, now you should not learn about financial planning. That if I say that right now I am a 40 years of age, so I should not learn about financial planning, it's not correct. Even a person who is of 60 years or 70 years, there is no age to learn, or there is no bar to implement any decision or any to plan anything. The founder of KFC, he started his own enterprise at the age of 70. So age have nothing to do with respect to implementing your ideas, to achieve your goals, to achieve your dreams. Barack Obama retired from the president of India, president of USA at the age of 55, and Donald Trump became the president of USA at the age of 70. So age is just a number. What you need is that you should remain fit, and if you are fit, then their age has nothing to do. Recently, a few days back, Mahasaya Dharmpal, that the founder of MDH Masala, he died at the age of 95 plus. So he has proved that age is just a number, and still at the age of 95 plus, he was very energetic, very young, and he was very workaholic even that age, at that age also. And that's why you should start planning from the student days if you are listening to this lecture, because early the better. And if you start planning from the student days, then definitely you will have more time to plan. You have more time to plan, you have more time to act, you have more time to remain dedicated to your investment horizon or investment avenues that you have decided. And definitely the power of compounding will help you in the long run. Now, what is power of compounding? We'll just come to know in the coming slides. Now, what is the process of financial planning? We have talked about that we should start financial planning. Financial planning is very important. Now, what is that process? It is very simple, that we should gather financial data, we should assemble all the financial data of ours. Then once we have assembled all the financial data, then identify goals and risk appetite. Goals, we have just talked that what will be your goals in the coming future. So just identify your goals, what kind of risk you can take. Risk appetite will be different from person to person. Again, I just make it clear that risk appetite has nothing to do with the earning and wealth of the person. If a person is earning very handsomely, but at the same time he have a very huge amount of loan liabilities that has been given to him from his ancestors, his or her risk appetite will be relatively lower than a person whose earning is relatively less but have no loan liability. And further, risk appetite also depends on the psychology of a person. If a person is of a risk-taking nature, he has been grown up in an environment where risk-taking is always appreciated, definitely he will be going for an investment which will involve very high risk. On the contrary, if the person is grown up, has been brought up in an environment where risk-taking is not appreciated, definitely his or her risk-taking capability will be relatively lower. So identify your goals, and once you have collected the financial data, identify your goals, and then try to identify the gaps that I want to achieve this much after 5 years down the line, and this is my goal, and with the current financial data, whether I will be able to do this or not. If I am not able to do that, this is the gap, and how to fill up this gap. So try to bridge the gap and then implement your plan. Now the question is, suppose you are thinking that after 5 years you will be requiring a sum of rupees 50 lakhs to achieve any of your financial goal, and currently your earning is only 5 lakh per annum, or say 10 lakhs per annum. Out of 10 lakh, this is your financial data, income data. Every year you are spending, your expenses are almost 50%, so you are able to save only 5 lakh. 5 years down the line, you will be able to earn, you will be able to accumulate only 5 into 5, that is 25 lakhs, and yet there is a gap of 25 lakh, because 5 years down the line, what I have planned, that will require 50 lakhs, and with my current financial data, with my current income and spending, I will be able to accumulate only 25 lakh. So there is a gap of 25 lakh. So how to bridge that gap? So here there is a very important saying of Warren Buffett, one of the biggest, not one, the biggest investor in the world. He said that don't be dependent on a single source of income. Make investment to create another one. So here also you have to bridge a gap. There is a gap of 25 lakhs. So you have to plan, you have to make investment to increase your income, so that right now you are earning 5 lakhs, so your earnings should be increased. For that you need to make some investment. Maybe that investment may be in terms of labor, maybe in terms of money, maybe in terms of some other efforts, and ultimately you need to plan so that you can bridge the gap and implement that plan. For example, I'm a teacher, and how should I increase my income? So I might be thinking to write a book and publish it so that I can earn some royalty. I can be thinking to make some investment and get some interest. I can be thinking to make some investment in equity shares and get some dividend, and in that way I can increase my income so that I can fill up the gap. And review periodically. So from time to time we need to review periodically all our financial planning process, because our financial planning process, it starts from gathering financial data. So right now my income and expenses are in a particular direction, but maybe after 2 years my income might change. I got some new opportunity and my income might be changed. There is some expansion in the family and expenses may also change. After some time, say my daughter, she starts earning, so my income also change. So these are the things which keeps on happening, and that's why we need to review periodically our financial planning process. For example, my daughter is in class 9. Maybe 3 years down the line she will be pursuing for her graduation courses as per her willingness and as per her capabilities. She will be pursuing some graduation, so definitely that will require huge sum of money. Maybe, but after 7 years or 8 years, when she will be graduated, so she will start earning. So definitely this will change my financial planning, or this may change my financial data. How? One part is that the expenses that I am incurring on her, that will be reduced, and second, assuming that she will be contributing some part of her salary to her father, she might be thinking to give some part of her salary to her father, so definitely this will change my income also. So my expenses have reduced, income has gone up, and this needs a thorough review of my entire financial planning process. So this is how, so for every person, from time to time this keeps on happening, and that's why this financial planning process, this needs thoroughly and properly revised. Now, the first process of financial planning, it starts with gathering financial data. So what kind of data? It's very simple. It's not a rocket science. Simply you just took a pen and paper and write down what are the sources of your income. and what are the sources and what are the avenues of your expenses. So what are your sources of income? So your sources of income, suppose if you are working somewhere, so definitely you will be getting some salary at the end of the month. If you are not working, if you have your own business, so definitely you might be the source of income will be your business, the profit from business. If you have some property, then rent might be another source of income. If you have some investment in bank, if you have some investment in stock market, then dividend and interest might be some source of income. And what is the nature, whether it is stable or it's fluctuating? Salary is very stable, but on the contrary, this business income, this is fluctuating. So this you need to identify, and this you need to take into consideration while planning for your finances. And second, expenses. What are the major avenues or expenses? And while gathering financial data, it's not only about this particular month. You should start with this particular month, and in this month, every month, what are your income and expenses? But you should have a relatively long-term horizon, that your income, how you see your income 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. Is it increasing? Or is it going to change? Is there significant going to happen to your income or its nature? And so is the expenses. Right now you are kids, you are just pursuing your BBA or BCA, your graduation courses. After some time you will get married, so you have some additional responsibility. After some time your family will be expanded, so your expenses will increase. So all these things has to take into consideration while collecting your financial data. This is the first step. Then identify your goals. So what will be your financial goals? That we have discussed already in the previous slide. But I told you that the financial goals has to be quantified in terms of money, and that's why define investment objective or financial goal. This financial goal has to be converted in terms of money, and in order to achieve those goals, how much investment do you require? That will be your investment objective. Okay, after suppose I want to buy one scooter, so, or a motorcycle, so that will require how much money? Say that will require I'm not exactly sure, but suppose if I want to buy one motorcycle, so reasonably it will require around 80,000. Now I want to buy it after 3 months, so how much money I should keep aside every month, so that after 3 months I can buy one motorcycle? So is it 30,000 per month or 25,000 per month per month, so that at the end of 3 months I will have 75,000, and I can have some interest at the end of the 3 months, so approximately it will be 79,000, and I can buy that motorcycle, I can meet that goal. So that define investment objective according to your investment goal. Your investment goal may be short term. So short term goal, which is actually in accounting, short term means less than 1 year. But here we are not exactly dealing with hardcore accounting or hardcore finance. It is our personal finance. So in our personal finance, if it would have been a matter of accounting, pure accounting or pure corporate finance, then we could have defined that short term means less than 365 days. That is treasury bills. That's why these are issued for 364 days. That is the maximum duration of issuing of treasury bills. But this is personal finance, so we can have some flexibility. ठीक है, जैसे हमारा बच्चा जो है, जब 1 साल 2 महीने का होता है तो भी हम बोलते हैं कि 1 साल का ही है, और 1 साल 8 महीने का होता है तो हम तब भी हम बोलते हैं कि अच्छा वो 1 साल का ही तो बेटा है, 1 साल का बच्चा है, ठीक है, या 1.5 साल का है. 1 साल 9 महीने का होता है तो बोलते हैं 1.5 साल का है. So because this is our personal, our emotions are also attached to that. So short term, we are not going exactly as per the rules of accounting and corporate finance. So short term, here we can think of like those goals which have to be fulfilled within less than 3 years. That is our short term goals. And medium term goals, which will be requiring to be fulfilled within 3 to 5 years, and long term more than 5 years up to 10 years. Okay, so like if I have to talk about from your perspective, from the perspective of you students, suppose if I think that you are in BBA first year, all of you are in BBA first year or BCA first year, then what might be your short-term goal? Within 3 years, you are going to write or appear for your MBA entrance. And if you qualified, and definitely you will be qualified because you all are very bright students, so you will be qualifying for your MBA program, so that will require some money. So that will require, suppose a reasonable management institute, a management college in Mumbai or Nagpur or anywhere in India, they charge per students for their MBA courses, say around 5 lakhs rupees per 5 lakhs. So within 3 years, you need to arrange 5 lakhs. So that is your short-term goal. Medium term, after MBA what? After MBA, suppose you are thinking to have your startup. So that will require some investment. So that will be your another financial goal. Or you want to pursue your PhD, that will also require. PhDs may be funded. You can manage your scholarship also. So that will be your medium-term goal. Or maybe once you are successful in setting up your own business, then what? You are thinking to buy a house. You might be thinking to settle in your life. So you must be thinking to get married. So getting married, buying a house, buying a car, all these things might be coming simultaneously in your life, and that will require substantially huge amount of money, and that may be requiring, maybe not now at BBA right now you must be of 18 years or 19 years of age, so you have almost 10 years of time in your hand, so you can think of your finances from that perspective, maybe long term, after 10 years what you need to do. So these are some of the goals you can think of, and each goal must have a target amount and date. This is most important. Normally people say that I will buy a house, but what will be the amount that you need to think of to buy a house, and by what date you are planning to have a house? That date it does not mean that exact date, but at least year, the number of years, or the like maybe it is 2020, so by 2030 I shall have these things in against my name. So this target amount and the date, it must be very clearly spelled out. And goals without amounts and dates are likely to be missed, and this is very clear. Then once you have identified your goals, identified your financial data, what are your income and expenses, and what are the goals that you have to achieve, then definitely you have some gaps, that you want to have 50 lakhs at the end of 10 years, but given your current financial sources, income and expenses, at the end of 10 years you might be having only 40 lakhs, so there is a gap of 10 lakhs. So how to plan that? So that expectation and reality, expectation and actual, always there will be some gap, and you have to think of how to bridge that gap. That I have already discussed in my previous slide. So how to bridge that gap? So might be you have to think for some extra work, some extra effort, some extra investment, some other ways of making money, and that too legally and ethically. You can think of that. If your current sources of income are not giving you the return, or you are not able to satisfy your requirement with your current sources of finance, so you should create some extra sources, some other avenues and other sources of making money. That never be dependent on a single source of earning money. You should have multiple sources of earning money, so that even if one source of money is blocked, is no longer giving you return, then you can have income, you can have cash inflows from other sources. So that you should plan beautifully at the young age only. Okay, if you are very good in writing, then you can think of writing some columns, writing some books, and so that you can have royalty. If you are from some well-to-do family, then you can make some investment, maybe in house property, maybe in bank fixed deposit, maybe in stock market, so that you can have some extra money, extra source of income in your hand, so that you need not to be dependent on a single source of income. And then prepare the plan. And as I told you, that understand the risk taking ability, and as I also told you that risk taking ability, it has nothing to do only with your income. It has, if you have good income and good assets, then your risk taking ability will be high. Good income but huge liability, then definitely you cannot take more risk. Good income but good expenses also, then also you cannot take more risk. Good income but less expense assets. So all these permutation and combinations are there, and accordingly did understand what kind of risk you are able to take. If a person of 70 years of age and he has invested in a company where the gestation period will be of 10 years or 15 years, definitely you can think of that person's age is 70 or 75 years, and that investment where he is planning to, suppose he is planning to make investment in a company which is going to build a dam which will produce hydroelectricity, and you know that constructing a dam over a river, so right from preparing the detailed project report to land acquisition, then getting all the environmental clearances, and then constructing the dam, and finally producing electricity, and then constructing grid, everything will require at least 10 years of time. And that person is of 75 years, so definitely he cannot wait for 10 years. So he need to make investment which can give him quick return without any risk. So you cannot advise him to go for an investment in a NHPC project. But if that person is seeking advice, so you should tell him that just go for a bank fixed deposit. Banks are offering some attractive rate of interest, some higher rate of interest for the senior citizens. So you should go for that only. You cannot go for a project, you cannot go for some investment whose gestation period will be very high, very long, and that is risky also. Got the point? So that you should understand, and accordingly you should prepare the plan and then implement the plan. So invest judiciously, as I already told you, that thinking your investment profile, thinking your risk profile, you should make investment. And now what are the various avenues for investment, that also we'll discuss. You should also think of risk return trade-off. You should also think that not taking risk is also a kind of risk. If you are not taking any risk and you are keeping all your money in a tijori or a trunk, then that will also erode over a period of time. And the culprit is inflation. Okay. So not taking risk is the biggest risk. So you should take some risk, but it does not mean that you should take unreasonable risk. And there is a movie, there is a web series also which is now being broadcasted on Sony Live, Scam 92. What is that popular dialogue? Risk hai to isk hai. So risk, but the term risk has been conveyed, or it has been taught to us in a very negative way, or in a very what I can say, I will not say that wrong, but not appropriate way. It has been told to us that more is the risk, more is the gain. And believing in this philosophy, if I climb the 5th story of my institute, and from that I just thinking to make a high jump, and that definitely I will be thinking that this is the biggest risk I am taking, and definitely my gain will be highest. But that's not true. Though I am thinking to make a jump from the 5th story building of my institute, so risk will be very high. I think it is the extreme risk, but the return will not be risk. So people will be rewarded for not taking the risk, rather they are rewarded for managing the risk. They are rewarded for handling the risk. If you just go in and around your locality and ask any of the businessmen, that uncle or auntie, are you taking risk by doing this business? And definitely many of them will tell you that, beta, I'm working whole day and night so that I need not to face any risk. I don't want to face any risk, and that's why I'm working day and night. What the point? So they are not taking risk, rather they are managing risk. they are working so that this risk need not to be faced. Anyway, so